Do you think that Epstein put his deepest, darkest secrets in an email? This is scratching the surface, I believe, of everything that we're about to see.
They have to explain to us now what a bunch of child molesters have to do with national security. Why do child molesters influence national security? I want the government to tell us why to answer that question. We have 89% of Americans that want to see this. We need to clean out our political system.
All right. Welcome back to the Rice Report, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. The one place where you're going to come and hear things you may not hear anywhere else. If nothing else, you're going to hear a very down the middle view. All sides are welcome here. We talk about the three things you're never supposed to talk about in public: money, politics, and religion. And more importantly, we try to explore things from every angle. So today's guest is Nick Bryant, investigative journalist and the head of the Epstein Justice. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about here today, Nick. There is... We've just gotten a bill passed through the House and the Senate with not a single opposing vote for the Epstein files, which to any logical human being should indicate that there's something wrong here. Not a single abstaining vote that went through Congress or the Senate. What are your thoughts on this first and foremost, Nick?
Of course, I'm cynical because the Trump administration has really fought this. Massey and Representatives Massey and Khanna came up with the discharge petition some months ago, and the Trump administration has done everything it possibly can to stymie the vote on the discharge petition. And I was skeptical of the discharge petition because it had to get 218 votes in the House to go through, but then the House would vote on it as a bill. It would have been Bill 165. And then if it got a majority in the House, it would go to the Senate, and the Senate Republican, the ranking member is John Thune, and he had the ability to quash it unilaterally. And he didn't sound like he was very positive about Epstein transparency. But even if it got past him, then the Senate would have had to have voted on it, and there would have had to have been a majority in the Senate, and then Trump would have had to have signed it. And now we see all these events just coming out in a matter of days. And I think that it might have something to do with the emails.
I think so too. I mean, first of all, they're just emails. So I try to set a precedent of critical thinking on topics like this. Number one, the mere fact that when we got into office, the files were on her desk, then they weren't on her desk. Then she went on the news 1,000 times, and then all these different things. There's definitely a coordinated effort that's been happening for 11 months right now to discredit any findings. That is how a psychological operation would work. You taint it on both sides, so no one can actually ever believe what the truth really is. With the emails, let's just be realistic here, Nick. Do you think that Epstein, who is connected to everyone on planet Earth and had his own server and all that kind of stuff, I get that. Do you think he would put his deepest, darkest secrets in an email? I mean, it's kind of, this is scratching the surface, I believe, of everything that we're about to see. But a lot of these emails are very connected. So what are your thoughts on, how do you think the emails are pushing this forward? What kind of force do you think is driving that?
Well, the emails show that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had a friendship much longer than Donald Trump has confessed.
100%.
So that's something that's pretty major, because Donald Trump said that he hadn't really spoken to Epstein since 2003 or 2002, 2004. And it showed that they've had a friendship up until 2017. And it also shows that Jeffrey Epstein did not really like Donald Trump. So
yeah,
I don't know how Donald Trump felt about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive, but Jeffrey Epstein didn't seem to like Donald Trump. And some of these emails are very cryptic, and it's difficult. The first one that was released is from April 2nd, 2011. And it's an email between Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. Now, I'm surmising that they're talking about law enforcement. And Jeffrey Epstein says, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. I'm 75% there. So what I think is that Epstein and Maxwell are deciding whether or not Trump has snitched on them. That's my take. And then Epstein goes on to say, victim spent hours at my house with him. So Epstein is saying that whatever victim this was had spent hours at his house with him. So, and this is from 2000 or 2011. And it's difficult to know what time frame they're talking about. When Epstein was taken down, initially was given the sweetheart deal 2007, 2008, it was very obvious that Trump didn't have any kind of motivation as far as Jeffrey Epstein. It was a 14-year-old girl that came forward and told the Palm Beach Police Department that she'd been molested by Jeffrey Epstein. So this email is somewhat enigmatic, but then the House Republicans released an email, and instead of the redaction of the victim, it has Virginia.
Right. Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
And Virginia said that she'd never been molested by Donald Trump. And she was also in Australia starting in 2002 when she left the web, was able to extricate herself from the web of Epstein and Maxwell. And I've gone to both the Republicans and the Democrats on the Oversight Committee, and no one will give me an answer. And I had a pretty good connection to one of the Democrats, I thought. So is Virginia the name of that victim, or is this some kind of desperate bid by the Republicans to completely show that these emails are fabricated?
Yeah, I mean, that's the hard part, right? I mean, these are in congressional record, so they're stored there. But we don't, that's the weird thing about all this stuff, Nick, is we actually don't know what's real and what's not. I mean, it's pretty easy to fabricate an email. So like we can't discount that. But the two emails you have in question there, the first one, the dog that didn't bark, I mean, the story that we've heard on the internet, which has no actual proof except for people overwhelmingly believing the story, is that Donald Trump was the rat who took down Epstein his first time. So there's no way to prove that right or wrong. And at the same time, when you redact the name Virginia and place victim in there, it's just confused. Like, where's you're the expert on this. So I'm trying to figure it out on my own. Where's your head going with this? What do we believe? What do we not? Like, I tend to not believe anything. That's kind of where I default.
Well, if you look at the Palm Beach Police Department reports on their Epstein investigation, as I said earlier, it's very obvious that the prime mover of that investigation was a 14-year-old girl.
Right.
And her stepmother brought her into the police station. And then the Palm Beach Police Department took it from there and started to find some victims, and then ultimately found a number of them, anywhere from 17 to 21. There's different numbers. So I don't really see that being an issue with Maxwell and Epstein at that point, because it's pretty definitive. Now, are they getting news down the road that someone is snitching on them to law enforcement? Is that possible? I would think that it is. I mean, Epstein, the Palm Beach Police Department served that search warrant on Epstein's home, I mean, he was clued up to it. He took all the cameras were out, all the incriminating computers were out. So was Epstein getting some intelligence that someone was talking to law enforcement about it?
Well, I would think that he would be, right? I mean, the thing we can't prove, but I think everyone realizes that, I think he's the only person in U.S. history to have been convicted of a crime, especially a sexual crime, that was allowed to not only leave custody, but leave the country to go to Israel and then come back. So I would think that he would have intelligence networks that would be impeccable, not just a normal financier guy. We all know nobody believes that. But yeah, I fully believe that he has an intelligence network that would have alerted him to the raid, number one. But this, the only dog that hasn't barked, like that part to me is so strange. And of course, like the Trump The Trump, big Trump people will automatically dismiss all of this stuff, and then the left will automatically believe all of this stuff. And I think somewhere in the middle is where we find the truth. No.
Yeah, I mean, there are some very telling emails, like Virginia Giuffre. She was heavily attacked, and it's truly unfortunate because she was quite a warrior. And in one of the emails, Epstein said Prince Andrew kept ties with Epstein longer than thought, and then Epstein said about Virginia, yes, she was on my plane, and yes, she had her photo taken with Andrew, as many of my employees have. So Epstein is saying that Virginia Giuffre is telling the truth there,
Hmm.
and you've got to kind of know uh, the story. But as far as I know, and now Epstein is saying that many of my employees have, but we definitely know that Virginia had a picture of former Prince Andrew
Yeah.
standing next to her.
Yeah. 100%. So now we have these emails. These emails push the hand of Congress. Congress goes to Senate. We have 2 unanimous votes. It's now on Trump's desk as we speak. He has 30 days. And as far as I understand, 30 days to release the files unredacted. That's what the bill says. However, Mike Johnson came out and said that these files will be redacted because it will become a national security issue, which means one of 3 things. Number one, obviously, our government is run by pedophiles. Number 2, there's probably intelligence ties to this, which is a pretty logical way to think. And number 3, there's people that are currently there on his side of the aisle that they don't want exposed. And just all this delay, 11 months of having files. First of all, I won't believe anything that comes out of the files redacted. It's just impossible to believe that it was only Democrats. Yes, he donated to Democrats. Epstein was a Democrat. But was he only pulling those strings? That's not how the world works. You pull strings on both sides of the aisle. So where are we at with this bill? What do you think is going to happen? You've been in this so long. What do you think is going to happen from here?
Pam Bondi said the same thing
Mm-hmm.
when she was going to release documents that matters of national security will be redacted. So they have to explain to us now what a bunch of child molesters have to do with national security. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that would be a very germane question. Why do child molesters influence national security? I mean, we can extrapolate why, but I want the government to tell us why to answer that question.
And I don't think they ever will. I mean, let's be realistic. Like, why would they ever answer that question? And we also have Mark Epstein coming out and saying that he has, first of all, this is Epstein's brother. So let's not give this guy too much credit. But he's now saying that there are a group in Virginia that's redacting the files, removing Republicans, which I wouldn't put past the Republicans. Like, let's be honest. But what what a coordinated nightmare to discredit something that the entire world should know about.
Well, I wrote a book called The Franklin Scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal.
Everyone should read that book, by the way. It's fantastically well written and well documented.
And Epstein, in many ways, is a carbon copy of the Franklin trafficking network. And this is, and I know, like, people have taken over the Wikipedia page on it, and
Mhm.
you can't write anything sane. That page is locked down and it reads like nonsensical. I mean, and a number of us have tried to introduce some reality into that page, but those editors aren't taking a step back. And I think the reason for that is the Franklin scandal is well documented, and I do make a strong case for that network. But that is something there's some dark, malignant corner of our intelligence that uses children
Mhm.
to compromise politicians. And you couldn't think of, I mean, if there's footage of you molesting a child, you're owned. I mean,
100%.
you're completely owned. And I think that is when people talk about they're protecting this guy or that guy, I think they're protecting a system, our political system, where many of the people are compromised. And there was a Tennessee representative, actually still a congressman. I believe he's going to be running for senator, who came out a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and said my colleagues are being compromised in honey traps. And unfortunately, there's a very dark side of our intelligence that's willing to use children. We saw it with the Franklin scandal, we saw it with Epstein, and we've seen it in other cases too.
Yeah, this isn't just restricted to the intelligence. This is in every aspect of politics, every aspect of government, and globally. So this is something that happens globally. By the way, this is nothing new, folks. There is nothing new that is available today that hasn't been around for all of human history. Children have been used as pawns in nefarious plans for a very long time. We just happen to have high capture capabilities now with phones and cell phones and videotapes. This has been going on a long, long, long time. And we've also had confessions come from the intelligence agency about people within the intelligence network who know that this has been happening and that guys in the intelligence agency are abusing children too. Very dark, demonic, satanic, Luciferian stuff that's happening in every branch of our government. And I don't see any change for the immediate future, because exposing these guys is going to be extremely difficult to do, because everyone who's supposed to be able to expose them has dirt on them. Where do we go from here, Nick?
Well, I started an organization called Epstein Justice. It's a 501c3. And what we want is an independent congressional commission to investigate this. If these documents get stuck with the FBI or the Department of Justice, we've already seen them. We know that Pam Bondi and Cash Patel are cover-up people. And if there's a subcommittee, I mean, meaningful things generally die in subcommittees. Now, what we want at Epstein Justice is an independent congressional commission. And that is going to require a majority in the House and a majority in the Senate. And when I was telling people that, they thought, well, that's going to be impossible. But we're witnessing majorities right now. I mean, granted, I don't think that a lot of those people voting are for full disclosure, although I think some of them are. But we're going to need an independent congressional commission, and we're going to need indictments. That's what's really going to happen. Only when we get indictments are we going to know that the government has the will to go after these child molesters.
When was the last example of an independent congressional committee that
They're,
was successful?
they've been pretty successful. I mean, some of them are just about should this statue be here? But then there's been some independent congressional commissions that have dug into some heavy stuff. And the thing about an independent congressional commission is it includes citizens and people that don't seemingly have a political agenda. If we could get that, if there would be people like me that were part of that independent congressional commission that know this story very well and know who a lot of the perps are and the procurers are, that would show that the government has the will. But as Americans, 89%, according to CBS, 89% of Americans want full transparency with the Epstein case. I mean, I don't know what to make of that 11%, but we know that 89% do.
We have 11% psychopaths in this country. That's a pretty accurate statement. That's the way to deduce that math. I agree. What's the process? How difficult is it to pull this off?
Well, we have a picture of every representative and every senator on our website. And we say committed or not committed. If they're committed, it's green. If they're not committed, it's red. And thus far, we have 2 congressional people that are committed to Epstein Justice. We have Massey, and 2. That's a start. But every week we send out a federal legislator of the month, and we have people we ask people that are following us to call up that legislator's office. So we provide the numbers. And what we need, I mean, this is growing. Epstein Justice, we've been doing this without any money. It's just we're a bunch of really dedicated people to this cause. I think once Epstein Justice gets rolling and we can really put pressure with Epstein Justice, every week we send out a legislator of the week, and we have people call their office, and we're going to keep doing this. And Epstein Justice is growing. We're going to need 218 votes in the House of Representatives, and we're going to need 51 votes in the Senate to get this independent congressional commission. But we have 89% of Americans that want to see this. I think what we're about to see is a dog and pony show in Washington, D.C. with these emails and with these documents. Pam Bondi has promised us germane documents twice. And when Pam Bondi and Kash Patel were called before Congress, they did their best to obfuscate and attack. They were very recalcitrant. And we need to clean out our political system. And I think what's being protected, I mean, there are definitely individuals being protected, but I think the paramount thing that's being protected is a political system that's really rife with blackmail and compromise.
Yeah, I mean, that couldn't be more obvious at this point. But of course, they're protecting individuals because individuals make up the system. The system was created before these individuals, and my research shows that this state of compromise is well into the 75 years of existence. I mean, this has been going on a really long time in DC. And I think we have a mutual friend in common with Dave Collum, who told me he was speaking with an intelligence guy who said, "You're never going to end child trafficking. It's too big of a part of the system." And that's scary. That's frightening. However, this has been going on since the beginning of time. People have been doing this practice for a long time. Doesn't make it right. It's just completely unholy. But man, this battle that you're fighting right now. So you have two
Yes,
politicians.
we've got two, and we're looking for more. And this isn't going to be easy, but things are never like the labor rights movement. That wasn't easy. The civil rights movement, that wasn't easy. So there are these events that have happened in our history that have changed Americans' view of the world. And I think that this is possible too.
Oh, I do too. I think enough pressure. I think you're doing it the right way. Put pressure on these guys to be able to relinquish their power and move it back into the hands of where it belongs. But it's a long road. There's no doubt about that. So I'm sure the 501c3 needs support in every possible way. Prayers, great place to start, money, things like that.
We're a group of committed people, and we're not really. I mean, I put up to 50 hours a week into Epstein Justice, and thus far this year, I haven't taken a penny from.
Well,
So, and we're dedicated volunteers, and we would love to get some capital. If we got some capital behind us, that would free a lot of us up to work on this full time and to really get things moving. But I think, do we want our children to inherit this political system
no.
that's so rife with blackmail? So do we want the government, because if you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. Do we want the government to aid and abet child trafficking? These are pretty simple questions.
Yeah.
And there's an easy way to go about it. Or there's a simple way to go about it. It's not going to be easy, but it's simple. Just get all this we need is a majority in the House and the Senate, and we're good to go.
That seems to work out well every time we need a majority of the House and Senate.
Yes.
For simple things like taxes. Nick, what would be? I mean, I'm sure you're closely tied to this. So we have emails. Okay, that's emails are one thing. They're. By the way, I've probably read 300 or 400 of the emails. Not a ton of them. The guy was boastful and egotistical, and it's just you can see how ugly this guy was from the inside. However, emails aren't going to do it. What else exists out there? Like if you had utopia, if you had 218 votes and 51 votes, and you got this commission approved. what would you be requesting? I mean, you request everything, but what have you heard exist? I know there's 10,000 hours of video, but we were told that those were videos of Epstein with young girls, but then we were told they were just kiddie porn, which doesn't make it any better. Still horrific. But what have you heard, seen, proven that's out there that actually exists to be able to lay out a case to the world that, without a shadow of a doubt, this person did this? Because I think
Well,
that's always a problem.
uh, the mendacity of Pam Bondi was amazing because she said this year that they were looking at all the things that had been impounded from Epstein's homes. And the FBI and who knows opened up Jeffrey Epstein's safe almost immediately in 2019 when he was arrested. They were looking at that stuff. There were hard drives taken out, according to Business Insider, and according to the New York Times, there were all kinds of discs of child abuse material. So that stuff is out there. I don't know if it's still out there. I don't know if it's been destroyed, but for Pam Bondi to say that they've just looked at it this year,
It's
I mean,
ridiculous.
when they got that, when they impounded those discs and hard drives, I'm sure that there were guys doing triple time looking at it to see who was on it.
And
And
that was when Trump was in office the first time. So there's no excuse
yes,
that we didn't have access. That's the other excuse. We didn't have access. Biden had access. No, it was in 2019. There was a full year where Trump's entire administration had full access to these files directly from confiscation.
but let's not forget this cover up was started under George Bush too,
Yeah.
and it was continued under Obama, and it was continued under Biden, and then it's continued under Trump. Where Trump made a mistake, Obama and Biden didn't go near this. But I think Trump thought that he could open Pandora's box without the curse coming out. I think he thought he could open Pandora's box ever so slightly and then slam it shut. But once you open Pandora's box, that curse is released. And for me, just that it's gotten this far is a huge win.
I agree.
When I was writing the Franklin scandal, I couldn't get anybody to look at it. I mean, I live in New York City. I live in the mecca of publishing, and no one wanted to touch the Franklin scandal. And I had friends that were questioning my sanity, and then the book got published, and then we couldn't get. I mean, I worked really hard on that book. I put 7 years of my life into that book, and
You
then
can
we
tell if
couldn't.
you've read it. Yeah, you can tell.
And we couldn't get anybody to buy it. So the fact that it's gotten this far, and I started investigating Epstein in 2012, and I put his black book and also the flight logs on the internet. I was the first guy to do that. And I was thinking that would cause something. And nothing really happened. There was some salacious articles, and no one really attributed that the black book and the flight logs to me, although
Right.
just about everybody wrote about it. But that
Pretty
was,
much everyone else is taking credit for doing that, by the
but,
way.
but what the media has given us is salaciousness. The media has not given us any kind of road towards justice. It hasn't acted like the fourth estate. It has given us, as I said, salaciousness. But the fact that it's gone this far is a victory. We still got to bring it across the goal line and get indictments and clean our government out. But I'm very happy that it's ubiquitous now. 89% of Americans want transparency. And when I first started researching and writing about this topic in 2002, I couldn't get anybody to listen to me.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was in Greenwich Village. I was walking around, I was listening to some music. And all of a sudden, I heard someone screaming at me, "You were right! You were right! You were right!" And it was a friend of a friend who, and my friend had told this guy what I was investigating, and then, he, you were right. I mean, he was screaming it. And so the fact that people know that I was right
It's a big win.
is heartening. But the fact that 89% of Americans want to see transparency on this is a huge win.
We still haven't seen transparency on the Franklin scandal either. So I have a friend who tried to do a documentary on this. He raised $250,000 fairly quickly, which for a documentary is a lot of money. And as he got to the second half of his $500,000 in financing, I haven't really talked about this ever, but he got phone calls and visits and all kinds of guys come into his office, shutting down that operation to not turn basically a lot of your work into a documentary about that. No, most people have no idea what the Franklin scandal is. Can you actually give them a quick rundown of the Franklin scandal? Because I do want them to buy and read your book. By the way, I have no financial incentive to do that. I've purchased it and read it myself. That book is illuminating, and it shows an overwhelming repetitive system that's being used in many different areas. Can you walk everyone through like a 5-minute breakdown of Franklin?
As I said, the Epstein trafficking network is almost a carbon copy of the Franklin trafficking network. What happened with the Franklin scandal is there was a child trafficking network that was operating throughout the 1980s. And I think it was bigger than Epstein's network. I think Epstein's network was around much longer than the Franklin network. I think that the Franklin network was around 12 years at the max, but it was bigger. It had a bigger machine. It devoured more children. And it's like what we see with Epstein. Kids were being flown all around the country. And with Epstein, we know that all of his homes were wired for audiovisual blackmail. And in Washington, D.C., there was a party house that was wired for audiovisual blackmail. And the person that owned that house his name was Craig Spence, and he was a CIA asset. Mm-hmm. And that's where the parties would go down and people would get compromised. And how this even opened up was Lawrence King. There were two primary pimps for this pedophile network, Craig Spence in Washington, D.C., and Lawrence King in Omaha, Nebraska. And Lawrence King was in charge of this credit union. And the credit union hadn't been audited in 4 years. And then all of a sudden, the FBI and IRS just descended upon the credit union. And the credit union should have had about $2.5 million, and it had actually, there was about $40 million that had been embezzled. And no one, and social services was aware that Lawrence King was trafficking children, and they went to the Omaha Police Department, and they also went to the Department of Justice, the U.S. attorney in Nebraska, and they were just ignored. Yeah, just ignored. Nothing happened. But then a Senate subcommittee in Nebraska formed because they wanted to know how a credit union with 2.5 million, how did King embezzle $40 million? Why wasn't they have to be federally insured credit unions have to be audited every year?
Annually.
Yeah. So why hadn't this credit union been audited? And once that Senate subcommittee formed, the social services people went to those senators and said, King's a thief, but he's also running a nationwide child trafficking network. And that ultimately led, the subcommittee hired an amazing investigator. His name was Gary Caradori, and he would ultimately be murdered because of his investigation. I think he was really close to blowing this thing wide open. But then the feds came in, the FBI got really heavy with all the victims. And then there were two really corrupt grand juries. There was a grand jury in Florida that said that Jeffrey Epstein hadn't molested a single child. And there were two grand juries in Nebraska, a federal and a state, that said that all the child abuse allegations were a hoax. And that's pretty much it. I mean, once those grand juries declared that the child trafficking network was a hoax, I mean, the mainstream media went with that immediately.
Yeah. Couldn't wait for it immediately.
Yeah. And then there was 2 victims that would not recant accounts of their abuse. One was Alicia Owen and one was Paul Benassi. And Alicia was indicted on 8 counts of perjury in the state, and Paul was indicted on 3 counts of perjury. And so Paul was looking at 60 years, and Alicia was looking at 160 years. And then Alicia was indicted on 8 counts of perjury by a federal grand jury. So she was looking at 200 years. We're talking about a kid that was trafficked as an adolescent. And both of them refused to recant. And there was a kangaroo court. That's the biggest chapter in the book is State v. Owen, because I really wanted to show just how corrupt that trial was. And she was found guilty of perjury because she wouldn't recant her accounts of abuse, and she was sentenced between 9. We're talking a kid that came forward when she was 20, and she was sentenced between 9 and 15 years. And the authorities really tried to destroy her. They put her in solitary for 2 years, and as much as there were a lot of resources that went into putting Alicia away. I mean, I think it was the longest criminal trial in Nebraska state history. And despite all this judicial malfeasance that went on in her case, they just barely got her. Her jury was out for 3 days. I think that the judge and the prosecutor and the FBI agents thought it would be a slam dunk, and they just barely got her. And what they needed to do is to find her guilty so those grand jury decisions could be sanctified. If she was found innocent, then those grand jury decisions would be called into question.
All the web.
And then as soon as they got Alicia on perjury, they immediately dropped all the perjury charges against Paul because they came so close to losing it with Alicia.
Is she still in prison?
She is not. And she's an associate director of Epstein Justice. You can go to our website, epsteinjustice.com, and you can read about Alicia. And she went and weathered it.
What a great person to have associated with you. What a great person to have.
Everybody that's associated with Epstein Justice is really top shelf. I'm very happy we put this amazing group together. We do need financing. People ask me, well, why do you need financing? There was someone.
I don't know. You're trying to go after banking behemoths that have been covering this up forever, along with a federal government with a money printer. I don't know. Like that question is stupid to me. Why people would need money to go after uncovering corruption in the government? It's a ridiculous question.
It is pretty ridiculous. And I know someone who is affiliated with a academic association. And this person asked me, why do you need money? And I said, why do you need money for that academic association? You know, you've got a building, you've got employees. You know, so
the real question people should be asking is, why don't you have money? Why aren't you being sponsored and funded by USAID or a government, vehicle to create transparency within the government? Those are the real questions people should be asking, instead of why does a 501c3 going after maybe the biggest story of a generation to uncover and create transparency in government blackmail. It's obvious you're not going to get money from them or the bankers. The bankers are just as guilty as everyone else. Although I did see right before we hopped on recording here today that two of the banks, Bank of America, I think, and JP Morgan Chase have now been subpoenaed for the records for Epstein, which is redundant because that's already happened as far as I know.
Well, JP Morgan has been litigated against, and Deutsche Bank has been litigated against. And I think that Bank of America is about to be, but those have been very substantial settlements. And Jess Staley who ran the investment side of JP Morgan, which I believe is the biggest bank in the world, Jeffrey Epstein pandered young women to him. We don't know if Jeffrey Epstein pandered children, but Jeffrey Epstein definitely pandered young women to him. And I think that settlement was about $160 million. Unfortunately, there's a lot of attorneys that are getting rich
Oh yeah.
off of these cases. And I would like to see some of that money put into our coffers, because we're really trying to show America
There's
what's
also
going
this.
on and
There's
clean out.
there's this new thing with this, Nick, as well. And I think it was like Megyn Kelly or one of these other shows that were saying, well, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't a pedophile. And like Peter Schiff has said this other, he wasn't after the small children. He was like the post-pubescent under 18 girl. To me, it's all the same. Like, you're a grown adult and it's a person, a human being under the age of 18, they're a child. I have a 16-year-old, I have a 12-year-old daughter. If at 14 years old you touched her and you're over 18, you're a pedophile. Period. This is now another prong in the belt of the media to say, well, Epstein wasn't a pedophile. What do they call it? Like hebophile or something, or hebophile or something for young girls. It's all underage kids. Like, they're high school kids. Okay.
Well, actually, the first kid that came forward was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Now, the Age, it's a newspaper, it's a daily out of Australia. They did some heavy duty investigation in the Virgin Islands, and they reported that there were kids as young as 11 or 12.
Yeah.
That were being pandered. And Virginia Giuffre said that there were 12-year-olds that were pandered. And I've been an activist, an anti-child trafficking activist for a number of years. And I've spoken at a lot of conferences. And I've gotten to know a number of therapists that work with people, victims that have been abused at a very young age. Usually what happens is their minds get fragmented. It's called dissociative identity disorder. And I've talked to two of them who really believe, and one of them is eminent in this field. One of them believes that, actually both of them believe that they've had clients that were under 10 that were part of that network. And one of them was able to describe Jeffrey Epstein's, the interior of his home.
So he's a but these are all excuses they're giving to this guy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter if they're 16 or they're 9 years old. I mean, it gets more disgusting the younger they are. But nonetheless, these are still children. These are still, they're not allowed to buy cigarettes, okay? They're not allowed to smoke. They're kids.
And with Megyn Kelly, the harassment that she endured at Fox, you would think that she'd have a certain sensitivity to this. Megyn Kelly, her behavior has been kind of mind-boggling to me.
Very erratic.
Throughout this. Because you would think that she would be one of the first people to run to help victims, but she has not shown any inclinations whatsoever to help the victims of Jeffrey Epstein.
And nothing has more So I love conspiracy theories. I think they're super interesting. I take in as many as I possibly can, and I spit out as many stupid ones as fast as possible, though I don't discredit any of them. I want to get your opinion on this because I've got you here, and I'm going to put you in the corner here, Nick. There's ways of thinking. Epstein is dead. It happened exactly like they told us. I don't think very many people believe that, despite the fact Bongino and Cash said it happened exactly the way we were told. There are people that he committed suicide. Then there's Epstein was murdered. That has some weight to it. Then there's Epstein is in witness protection program and has been given plastic surgery to be a witness in the future. And then there's another angle where Trump and Epstein were working together to take down these child trafficking networks throughout the world, which is pretty ludicrous. Like the more you break it down. So
that one I think is the worst.
So like, we're going to allow this to happen to take them down, which is how an undercover operation would work. I get it. But like, the thought of that being the reality to me is not a pill I can swallow. I don't think he killed himself, because men of that level of ego don't kill themselves. Maybe he's still alive. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so Bongino released that footage,
Yeah.
and actually, it has an angle. It's at a certain angle where someone could have walked up those stairs
Yes.
and
Yes.
not been seen by that camera. And then there was some editing that had been done too.
Yeah, it was
And
missing like a minute and a half or a minute and 20 seconds or something.
and then all the anomalies that night where the guards were sleeping, Epstein's cellmate was taken out. I mean, there's a lot of problems with the cover story. But when Dan Bongino said, I'm going to provide definitive evidence, and he showed us that video, I went, that's more incriminating than anything else. If
Yeah.
he thinks that this is evidence. When people say that Epstein is alive, I ask them, do you have any proof? I mean, is there, and no one's really offered me any proof about that. So I think his death is
Or
very
why?
suspicious. Yeah.
Like, why is he alive? Why would he be allowed to roam the streets? I mean, these are very, because we just live in such a crazy time right now, Nick, especially with AI and the way you can blend faces together and this stuff. And like, there's been pictures of supposedly Epstein in like Romania and some other places. He's a weird looking guy. People don't look like him. He's George Washington reincarnated. I mean, there's so many ridiculous things that I've seen out there. But his roommate or his cellmate in New York, that is an interesting story. I don't think most people know about. His cellmate is a very interesting story.
Well, his cellmate was a multiple murderer.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of extrapolating this, but pedophiles aren't really looked on too favorably in prisons. And actually, his cellmate was a multiple murderer and a former police officer. And he and Epstein got along. I mean, maybe Epstein gave him a bunch of money. I mean, who knows? But if you wanted someone to kill Jeffrey Epstein, that would have been the guy. I think.
There's your guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stick him right in the same cage. Give him all the access he needs. Very interesting stuff, though, Nick. It's just every day I seem to find myself looking for some sort of clarity here, and everything that happens is we get words of clarity. We get we're gonna do this, and everyone gets excited, and absolutely nothing happens. These emails being released, I mean, some of them are ridiculous, like the, did you have does Putin still have the picture of Trump blowing Bubba and these stupid things? I mean, that people blew that. So I want to be balanced and fair here. That's a ridiculous thing. To me, that's locker room talk between two brothers cracking a joke. I don't think there's anything at all to that. But yet the left-wing media blows that out. The right-wing media denies it immediately. I'm going to turn to you on this because I have been for months. You're definitely one of the guys that I follow to get the updates on this case, because we're looking for proof. We're looking for evidence. We're looking for facts. And we're not going to get that until we have files. And to be honest with you, I think we're going to get the same kind of files that we got, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. We're going to get the same kind of files we got for JFK, MLK, heavily redacted, that tell us the story we already know, so they can say, see, we disclosed it to you. It's exactly how we happened. Continue to move forward. Nothing to see here.
Well, Americans have to demand indictments.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that Ghislaine Maxwell built the machine. Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova, they operated that machine that just sucked up little girls. They're fully cognizant of that entire network, the four that I just named. And they could be indicted if our government had the will. You could put those four women in front of a grand jury and indict them on multiple counts of child trafficking, which is a heavy sentence. In the feds,
should be life for anyone.
It's 15 to life in the federal system, child trafficking. So you would get those women, indict them on, I don't know, 10 counts of child trafficking. I mean, they did it for years, but you could indict them on multiple counts of child trafficking. And when they're looking at multiple lifetimes in prison, they're going to roll over on the perps if our government had the will. And there's a lot of victims out there. The FBI and Department of Justice says there's 1,000. There's probably more than 1,000. There's only 225. The Epstein Victims Compensation Program, only 225 came forward. And there's a lot more out there. I think a lot of them were very, very frightened to come forward. And so we've got lots of witnesses. And if the government really had the will to prosecute these perpetrators, it would be a RICO case that's been used against the mafia, where you get the lower rank guys and indict them on multiple counts and they're looking at in prison for a number of years, and they're going to roll over on their bosses. That's the exact same thing that would happen with Epstein if the government had the will.
I mean, America, if we have the will, America is rife with potential RICO. I mean, most of our government is involved in cases that could easily be RICO'd. But now, Ghislaine Maxwell, she's in jail, right? So give us an update there. So she's tried, she's convicted, she trafficked young girls. No client list released. She's put into a maximum security or minimum security. Now she's moved to minimum security in another state. If any of you had taken the time to listen to the interview she did with the administration investigator, it was like a wiffle ball. It was like the worst possible interrogation in history. The investigator was leading her to give answers that he was wanting, and that's not an opinion. That's black and white in the way it is. What is going on with Ghislaine Maxwell? She obviously would be the linchpin if she spoke, reduced sentence, something like that. I'm not for that. I like give her an incentive, but she's got to spend the rest of her life in prison, period. I would not be a happy camper if she gave up everything and they let her go. They're all guilty. These are children.
I mean, Sammy the Bull Gravano took part in 19 murders, and the feds gave him 5 years.
Yeah, good point.
But he rolled over on John Gotti, and John Gotti was someone that the feds really wanted because Gotti had beaten them before. With Ghislaine Maxwell, she should not be in that prison. Sex offenders shouldn't be in that prison. And she goes to yoga classes. She's telling her brothers and sisters how much better the food is. She should be in a dungeon. And if she wants to give up perpetrators, she should have maybe an opportunity at freedom in 20 years if she lives that long. But those other 4 that I named, they were very integral.
And they're still walking the street.
Well, actually, one of them, Sarah Kellen, lives in she has a multi-million-dollar house in New York and a multi-million-dollar apartment in Miami. And I believe that those women have done very, very well. Epstein gave them a lot of money. Nadia Marcinkova is missing in action. She hasn't been heard from for about a year. I think that she's hunkering down. She was told just to be quiet. So we have no idea what happened to her.
What a twisted web we weave, right? When a government conspires to deceive. And that's where we find ourselves.
But this is the most horrific of crimes that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And as Americans, according to the Centers for Disease Control, 25% of underage girls have been molested and 5% of underage boys. Now, a lot of people in the field think it's slightly conservative for underage girls and it's very conservative for underage boys. But if you just go with the CDC numbers, you've got over 50 million Americans that have been molested as minors.
Unbelievable.
And if they see, and the vast majority of them, 99% of them, don't think that they have a shot at justice.
Right.
But if they see no one getting arrested and indicted with the Epstein case, a proven trafficking case, they're definitely going to think that they've got no hope and no voice and not a shot at justice. So that's another reason why people have to go to prison here, is because there have been a lot of people in the United States that have been molested, and they have to see some justice here. And I believe that Epstein justice is a justice for all victims, because all victims want to see these perpetrators put away. And I think that if they saw that, it might give a lot of them hope that they can have justice and a voice.
And there's the other side too. The longer it goes with no one going to prison, the perpetrators get emboldened to molest even more children because there's no penalty for it. Our penalties in this country for child molestation are nothing. I mean, the average person is getting like a year to 5 years. If they get out of prison, if they don't get killed in prison, if they get put in the maximum security, that rate is pretty high, by the way. Like, child molesters don't get out of prison. A lot of them die in prison from the inmates, but the penalties that they're getting for this stuff, these are children. This is innocence. Like, we have such a gross world that we live in right now, where we're not even protecting the weakest among us. This is an indicative. This is an indictment on society, on all of us, that anyone not taking any sort of stance, talking about this, pushing the ball forward. Thank you for what you guys are doing at Epstein Justice, because if it wasn't for you guys, we probably wouldn't even be where we are right now.
I've had to make tremendous career sacrifices because I went down this path. I'm completely cool with it. I would do the same thing tomorrow. I mean, I wouldn't change it at all. But people are generally afraid of not getting what they want and losing what they have. They live in that fear, especially in the kind of materialistic society that we live in. And we need people to transcend that and do their jobs. And once that happens, then we have a shot at justice for not only the Epstein victims, but for a lot of other victims too.
Yeah, there's victims. During this 1 hour conversation, there were probably hundreds of victims all around this country right now. This is an overwhelming plague on society. Well, Nick, please let us know how we can help, how we can support you, how people can follow you, keep in touch with you, keep tabs. How can we participate in helping support you guys?
You can go to Epstein Justice and sign up, donate. I can give you some links that people can follow.
Okay, we'll put them in the summary.
Yeah, and we need definitely resources. I would like for us to have. I've been pretty much working full time on this without really drawing a salary because I've been able to. But I would like to see some of the people on our staff get a minimal salary. I mean, they would be willing to quit their jobs and work at Epstein for a very minimal salary.
Yeah.
So that's where we need help.
And they can follow you on Twitter.
You
have a
follow
Substack?
me on. You can follow me on Twitter. No, I don't have a Substack, but you can go to nickbryantnyc.com, and I have a blog. I do a lot of blogging. There's I don't know, 30 blogs or so that you can read.
Nick, you're as bad a self-promoter as I am, man. We got to get you aligned here so you can pump all this stuff out to everybody. You should definitely follow Nick on Twitter. Check out Epstein Justice, the website. Whatever you can do, pray for these folks. Pray for these folks. Seriously, pray for these folks, because they're fighting against massive amounts of corruption, evil in high places. It's straight out of Ephesians 6, the things that happen. This is earth. Thank you for taking the time out of your career, out of your life, and your entire team. We just wish you all the best. That any way we can support, we certainly will, and any way that we can contribute, we certainly hope that all of you do. But Nick, thank you so much for your time here today. This has been revelatory, and we'll keep tabs on this stuff, and I know you are all the time.
Thank you, Eric, for having me.
Absolutely. So God bless you.
God bless
this
you.
country, and we will see you all on the Rice Report next time. Thank you so much for coming here today.